it over the Dash and the guys at the analyst desk to break down that game.
Thank you very much, Riv. SKT will be happy to have snapped their losing streak here at MSI, but that doesn't mean it's all sunshine and roses for them, because it was still a very close game in which CLG looked to have control for the majority of it.
And, you know, early birthday present to Faker. They're like, you can play Zilean, the one champion that can maybe save every single one of your teammates from the untimely demise. And I feel like that's a one Zilean game. Quite like how RNG got the Twitch Kindred composition once, I do not expect SKT to be able to play Zilean for many games more in this tournament.
Yeah, it's what I wanted them to go back to, right? With the Ryze and the Azir gone, I would have loved to see Ryze, but obviously it was banned. But it's just a champion where Faker can control the pace of the game in teamfights. And that's not to say that that game was easy by any means. Stixxay and Afromer were doing a lot of work aside from some bad Bard ultimates from Afro. And it's another one of these games that actually did kind of come down to those teamfights right at the end.
Yeah, it was. But I like also another change for SKT is going back to a reactive style instead of being the ones always forcing the plays, because they actually allowed CLG to set up quite a lot of plays, but then a double teleport to respond every single time. Yesterday, it felt like they were trying to force too many things with teleports as well, and it ended up losing mid towers for it. So this game was much better, much slower pace, obviously, for SKT, and getting into these team fights where Zilean can really shine.
And they finally went back to trading objectives. Dragon number 3, CLG march the big Spirit Bomb, whatever it is, down towards that brush, sweep out everything, take Dragon number 3. They invest a lot into it, about 30 seconds, and meanwhile, Duke just takes top lane. Faker ensures that they can't get back towards mid, they can't pressure him at all. If that game went to 5th Dragons, Dragon stacking is worthwhile, but it always takes you 30 minutes of investment to be able to get there, and SKT just got incremental gold advantages in that meantime to be able to shut down that strategy.
Respect to CLG for running this kind of composition, though.
Yeah.
Because this is so hard to execute.
I wanted to return back to that just because it's the second time we've seen Aurelion Sol. It's the second time we've seen it be unsuccessful in terms of the end result.
Yeah.
However, we do, as you mentioned, see CLG looking to find another way to play this game, or at least, you know, take a win or force people into a decision and learn to play around it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Aurelion Sol's busted. It just takes so much work to get the team composition down and the teamwork down with it. And while he has, once again, the right idea with what he wants to do with it, I think sometimes the execution is down. There were a few fights where they nearly took over because the Aurelion Sol orbs were just bouncing around for so long, and he was also catching SKT by surprise on a few instances, but that final fight just did not work.
No, final fight didn't work for them, but also the kind of things you can do with this composition, right? Land the bot ult into that massive orb coming in from Huhi. It could have worked out. Never managed to pull it off because it is very hard to execute.
Yeah, you mentioned the final fight. Let's take a look at it real quick, just because, again, it seemed like CLG had control over it. They have the Baron, but fight breaks out, and Faker Zilean doing a lot of work in this team fight.
Down bottom, it looked like they'd have Wolf caught, and they could have disengaged from this, but you see Huhi and Xsmithy up on the top side actually trying to go big, and they used the Kindred ultimate very early. I think Xsmithy was worried he was going to get bursted out, and Huhi, A, doesn't stay on the Kindred ultimate, and B, just gets way too close for melee combos.
And also the ult here from Afromer actually ends up making it much easier for SKT to then
They group back up around Bang.
Right, yeah, they just group around Bang, they pop the Zilean ulti onto him, and he doesn't die. And this was one of the fights where we saw Huhi not have a good fight because he's trying a little bit too hard to get some of the damage and land some CC. But it's hard to fault him because,
I love this turn.
Yeah, this is great, but obviously SKT are TPing in and killing them.
And one more thing, like, you cannot do what Faker was doing on Zilean there, like controlling a huge area in the forest, as well as like the stasis before someone comes back to life means that Zilean's ultimate is much more valuable than Lulu's, because it means that you can't actually crowd around the body. You can't take them out very, very quickly. So I think that Zilean is such a niche pick, and you have to be a fantastic Zilean player to pull it off, but Faker is that, and it just kind of changes these team fights to a different tempo that CLG weren't used to.
Yeah, well, SKT bouncing back. Faker's Zilean, we'll see if they get it again in the future. For a word, though, with SKT over the revenge win on CLG, let's hand it off to Shox.
Thank you very much, Dash, joined here by Faker and Homin assisting in the translation. Of course, first things first, happy birthday, Faker.
Thank you.
No problem. But more importantly is that win that you guys have. First off, how important is it to have broken that losing streak that you guys were on?
이제 지금 오늘 전까지 이제 4연패를 하고 있었는데 이 연패를 끌어내기까지가 그러니까 이번 승리가 얼마나 중요했나요, 팀한테?
앞으로 저희가 이제 경기를 몇 번 더 지면은 그 4강을 못 가는 상황이었기 때문에 이번 경기가 정말로 중요하다고 생각했고 그리고 팀원들이 좀 잘해서 이번 경기 이겼던 것 같고요. 그리고 저희가 지난 경기 동안 좀 약간 선수들 개개인이 약간 한국에서보다 경기력이 안 나와서 좀 그 실력이 이제 조금씩 나오는 것 같아요.
So I think this game was very important because if we were to lose a couple more games, then it would jeopardize our advance to the semifinals. And I think me, myself, and our teammates weren't playing as good as when we were back in Korea. So I thank all my teammates, and I think we were able to win this game because of my teammates and the team. Yeah.
You guys all stepped up. You had a great game on Zillion. What was it like fighting against that Aurelion Sol and the composition that CLG had? It's only the second time that we had seen this champion in this tournament.
그 이번 이제 프로 경기에서 아우렐리언 솔을 두 번째로 보게 되었는데 이제 페이커 선수의 질련으로 아우렐리언 솔이랑 그리고 또 이제 CLG 팀의 조합을 상대하는데 어땠었나요?
우선 초반에 아우렐리온 솔이 굉장히 좀 많이 돌아다니는 챔피언이기 때문에 초반에 팀원들이 많이 버텨줘서 질련이 중후반에 힘을 썼던 것 같고요. 그렇지만 저희가 초중반 구간에서 아우렐리온 솔을 좀 갱킹을 했어야 되는데 좀 갱킹을 못 넣은 게 많이 아쉽긴 하네요.
Aurelion Sol is a champion that roams a lot, so I think thanks to my teammate, since they weren't like giving any ganks to that champion, I was able to farm during the early and mid game. But I do have some regrets that we weren't able to gank that Aurelion Sol champion itself during the early and mid game.
Well, I can sense a lot of respect and props to the teammates here. Faker, I talked to you on day one when you guys had two fantastic games. You were quite confident. Did you experience kind of a shift in your mental state after those 4 losses? Because that is quite an extraordinary situation for SKT to be in.
그 페이커 선수 이제 1일차 때 이제 2승을 하고 여기서 인터뷰를 했을 때 되게 자신감 있는 모습을 보여줬었는데 이제 그 이틀 동안에 좀 연패를 하면서 좀 멘탈적으로 조금씩 타격을 입었었는지 아무래도 좀 SKT 팀으로서는 유례 없는 패배가 이어진 것 같은데요.
일단 지난 3일간 저희 경기력이 제가 데뷔했을 때부터 가장 안 좋았다고 생각하거든요. 그래서 팀원들끼리 좀 멘탈은 안 좋았었는데 다음 경기를 어떻게 할까 많이 생각했었고 그리고 1경기 때 저희가 비록 2대0으로 이겨서 제가 자신감을 표하긴 했지만 어느 정도 좀 운도 있었다고 생각했었는데 2일차에서 좀 운으로 그 1경기 첫날에 그 운으로 이겼던 게 좀 나왔던 것 같아요. 2경기 때 좀 안 좋은 모습이.
Okay, so to tell you the truth, I think for the past few days our performance was the worst ever since we had our first debut. And for the first day, even though I conveyed some confidence, I think there was also a bit of luck that helped us win those first 2 games. And I think from the second and third day when we struggled, it was just our own loss. Like we didn't play good enough. So we keep on thinking about how we can improve and play better, and I hope it turns the table from this point on.
All right, well, fantastic answer. Thank you so much, Faker and Ho-Min as well. A lot of interesting insights here from Faker, and very humble after that win versus CLG. We are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, the Flash Wolves are going up against Europeans G2. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Going to be an awesome rematch. Could not wait to get into this one. Rift is owned by CounterLogic Gaming in the previous head-to-head. The mid-season invitational continues here from the Shanghai Oriental Esports Center.
I don't know if this is going to be the kill. Smithy tries to deny vision towards a brush. It's a flash forward from Duke. He's coming on the TP, and it's going to be a cleanup most likely here. Ready to take the inhibitor. Ready to be the SKT that LCK thought would be bringing to the MSI. 6-8 trying to go hard and prevent all of that. Who he goes down. Blank's ready to take some out, and he chooses maybe the wrong path, but flashes correctly. And now Darshan gets knocked up. SKT fighting with slivers of health on the backside. LCK will take the game over NALCS. SKT will continue to put wins in the win column.